Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, welcome. My name is Monica. Today I'd like to talk about Nora Roberts. She's one of my staple authors. I've been reading her since I was a teenager, and honestly, I always go back to her whenever I'm feeling a little slumpy or I'm just wanting a good romantic suspense, or it's just, she's a comfort read for me. Now I have to say, she has a humongous backlist. She goes by J.D. Robb and she goes by Nora Roberts. I mean, come on, she owns a mountain. She will defend her writing. She will defend other authors. She is just a fantastic human being. Anyway, but I just want to highlight some of my personal favorites that whether you want to start with them or not. I have barely scratched the surface of her backlist, okay? I don't think I'll ever be able to read all of her books, so I don't know how many she has, but I think she has like almost like 300 just under Nora Roberts alone. Then she has her J.D. Robb series, but I haven't read her J.D. Robb series yet, so I'm just gonna stick with her Nora Roberts. So let's just get into some of the books. So the first one I want to talk about is The Witness, and The Witness is about this girl named Elizabeth. She's meant to be perfect. Her mother is a neurosurgeon. Her mother is pathologically perfect, and she expects her to be pathologically perfect. She is incredibly intelligent to the point where she's genius level intelligent. Her mother basically breeded her to be intelligent. Some people thought that the character of Elizabeth could be autistic. Now, it was never actually stated in the text that she is autistic, so I can't say for certain whether she is or isn't, but she does have the characteristics of being autistic. Whether Nora Roberts meant for her to be autistic or not, I don't know. So unless Nora Roberts comes out and says it, I'm not going to assume anything. So she's a 17-year-old girl who goes to Harvard. She is about to start medical school. That is how intelligent Elizabeth is. And she decides one day she just really wants to be a normal teenage girl. So she goes to the mall and she sees this one girl who she wants to be friends with, right? And she learns how to make fake IDs and can make very, very, very good fake IDs. And they sneak into this club and they catch the eyes of these older Russian men, and they end up being mafia. And she ends up witnessing this girl's murder. She goes on the run after being a witness to this murder. She originally goes to the police, and the Russian mob is going to infiltrate the witness protection program. And so she uses her intelligence and her hacking abilities and her ability to make these fake IDs to survive. And it is her ability to survive that saves her life. And she learns how to survive on her own. And then she ends up in this small, quirky, southern small town where she meets this deputy, this police officer, and it's their romance. And I personally loved it. I thought it was a really, really well done book. The thing with Nora Roberts is she will take you from the beginning of the story, and her timelines are long. She doesn't do short timelines. It will take you from like a childhood trauma, and it will take you through all the way till the end of the narrative, to the end of to the point of conflict when everything wraps up. And that's what happens with Elizabeth. And it's just such a good one. And I really, really enjoyed this one. So the next one I want to talk about is Black Hills. This one takes place in South Dakota. Nora Roberts, her books takes place all over the country. Sometimes they even take place in Ireland or in other countries. This one is on an animal sanctuary. This is a second chance romance, and it's childhood friends, I think, to rivals to lovers. Coop and Lil. Lil is Native American. They end up connecting together, and then something happens to split them up, and then years later they come back together, and things are going on. there's a suspense plot, because in these books there's generally a suspense plot. And then it's years later, and Lil has opened up Chance Wildlife Refuge. This is her dream. She wanted to do this, but people are being killed, and it's tied up into this her dream. And he's come back home, and now Coop and Lil are back together, and now they have to find out what's going on and who's trying to sabotage her refuge, and who's doing the killing. And it's wrapped around this wildlife refuge. And oh my gosh, it's so good. It is a great second chance romance, and I really enjoyed this one. And I love the care that Nora Roberts does her research. She does her research when she's doing these different types of, because you could tell with The Witness, she knew what she was talking about when she was talking about hacking, because Elizabeth was a hacker for Wildlife Refuge for Lil. She knew what she was talking about with that. With agri-science, and what it took to open up a wildlife refuge center. She knew. So I was really impressed with the amount of research that Nora Roberts put into that. And speaking of that, the next one I want to talk about, and you can tell that she did her research with this, was The Obsession. At the very beginning, talking about setting the mood. This little girl follows her father, thinking that she's going to see her father lead her to a bike because it's going to be her birthday, and she's thinking, my dad's going to get me a bike. And she's walking through this woods, and it becomes creepier and creepier and creepier as she's going along, and Nora Roberts is using all your senses to make it more ominous as she's walking along. And then her father goes down into this, I want to call it a drain or something like that. And then she's getting scared, and then she has an accident. And then her father, the look on his face as he comes up is so animalistic. It's so predatory. And he leaves, and she's terrified, but she goes down and she sees what her father actually is, and she saves that woman down there. And that's the opening scene to The Obsession. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that right there is perfect beginning storytelling to me. I'm like, so good. Anyway, it is creepy. It is wholly creepy. But, and the reason why I'm saying about how she did her research, Naomi is a photographer. So throughout the narrative, throughout the book, she's talking about different types of photography and the different types of f-stops and everything. She would have had to know what type of camera Naomi would need to use, how to do the printing, how to sell the types of prints and everything. She would have had to done her research, and she did. But Naomi changed her name from Naomi Bowes to Naomi Carson because her father ended up being a very famous serial killer. And she's the one who found out about her dad. And she saved her dad's last victim. And then she is being stalked, and she's being hunted, but she doesn't know it until she gets to Washington, and she meets and falls in love with Xavier Keaton, who is a mechanic, and you think he's kind of a jerk at the beginning, but then he grows on you, because he is a kind of a jerk, because her heroes are just sort of gruff macho men type of heroes, and I'm used to that with Nora Roberts heroes. They're always like, yeah, I'm gonna kiss you now, and then they kiss him, and that's the way her heroes are. So they are very much protective heroes towards the heroines, but the heroines also are protective over their heroes. So I really enjoyed those. Another one I want to talk about is called Whiskey Beach. This one is kind of fun. This one is about a Boston lawyer. He was never arrested, but he was under intense police scrutiny and public scrutiny for the murder of who was his estranged wife. He goes back to this place. He goes back to this house called Bluff House. His name's Eli, and he meets this free spirit woman named Abra. She makes him relax, and they end up having this connection. But here's the thing. Someone keeps breaking into his house. There is this legend about this buried treasure with Bluff House. And something keeps happening. I think it was his grandmother who had a fall that nearly killed her. And so he goes to Bluff House after she has left the house. And someone keeps breaking into his house over and over again, and he thinks he's going crazy. And it's this whole thing. There's connections there, and it is such a great suspense story. And him and Abra has great chemistry. Their romance is wonderful. I loved this book. This book was just on point for Nora Roberts. This takes place in Massachusetts, and it was just such a great book for her suspense, and I highly recommend it. It has kind of paranormal, but it's not really paranormal because everything can be explained without it being paranormal, but you use the paranormal elements to explain things away until the big reveals happen. It's great. I loved it. I loved this whole book. And then I wanted to talk about some of our newer ones. Another one is Hideaway. This one is about Caitlin Sullivan. She is a daughter of Hollywood royalty. Think Drew Barrymore, about the Barrymores. So the Sullivans are like the Barrymores. So Caitlin, when she's 10 years old, she goes to her grandfather's funeral at Big Sur, in her family's compound, and they're playing hide and seek. These villains have come in, and they kidnap her. And this is not a spoiler. She manages to escape her kidnappers. She's able to get to this ranch, and she breaks into this house, and this boy named Dylan Cooper, he finds her as she's cowering in his family's kitchen. So she's able to escape the kidnappers. And so all the whole kidnapping plot is unfolded. And as time goes on, things start to happen as the kidnappers' identities are revealed, and then they are wanting their revenge for what happened to her. Her life is never the same, and it is so good. I really enjoyed this one. This one's a good one. You can actually get this one off of Libby or Hoopla if you wanted to read this one. But also Shelter in Place. This one starts off very rough. This one starts off with a mass shooting in a mall, in a movie theater, because the movie theater is attached to the mall, and by 3 teenage boys. After the carnage and after the aftermath, the healing begins. Reed wants to know what happens. Simone doesn't want to know anything that happens. And as everything starts to unfold, you're in the mind of different people. But the main characters are Simone and Reed. Reed wants to know everything that happens, but Simone doesn't. And it's their journey of healing as they go through. But the real perpetrator of everything that happens is hunting them down. And you're in the mind of a psychopath. And it's so interesting the way it is pulled off. She writes this so well. This one will stay with you. So very much check trigger warnings for this one. The last 2 I'm going to talk about are very much paranormal romances, or at least they have paranormal elements, and they're older. But the first one is Carolina Moon. This one is about Tori. Tori Bodine. It starts off when she's a little girl. Her best friend Hope is murdered, and that's the day her life falls apart. And after that, everything she is forced to leave her home, and until she comes back years later. This one was, I think it was first published in 2000. And this was actually made into a Lifetime movie. So if you ever wanted to watch the Lifetime movie, I'm sure you can find it. Her father was very abusive to her. She is psychic, so she can see what's going to happen. And she was able to see what was going to happen, but she couldn't stop it because she was a little girl. Hope's twin sister, Faith, didn't blame Tori, but their older brother, Cade, didn't blame her either. In fact, Cade always loved Tori. And so when they came back, it was more of their second chance romance. But the thing is that the person who killed Hope was still around. And so he starts stalking Tori because Tori was the one who got away. And it's Tori and Cade, it's romance, but also who killed Tori when they were little girls. And it was such a good book. I enjoyed that one. This one isn't as well known, but it's quite interesting. And since we're wrapping up spooky season, and there is a movie, Jerry O'Connell is in it, and it takes place in Louisiana, and it's a Lifetime movie, so I'm sure you could find it. It's called Midnight Bayou. Declan Fitzgerald moves from Boston to New Orleans, and he bought an old plantation home, and he's trying to restore it, except that it's haunted. He is falling in love with this girl in town named Lena. She owns a bar, and there's a whole thing with a ghost and past lives and everything. It's a fun one. I enjoyed it. You can find the audiobook. I think you can find, I don't know if it's on Hoopla. I've seen it on my Libby app. So, I mean, we're at the end of spooky season, so it would be a good one to read if you were so inclined to do so, but I enjoyed it. Anyway, so those are some of the ones that I do want to highlight. She does really good suspense and thrillers. She does really good paranormal romances, and she's one of my favorites. Again, I've been reading her since I was, a teenager? And I still haven't even scratched the surface of everything she has written. If you've read Nora Roberts, let me know your favorite down below. And if you made it this far in this video and you don't want to comment on anything, just please leave me a moon emoji, since last one of the ones I talked about was Carolina Moon. And until next time, my friends, happy reading. Bye.